You were a prosecutor at Nuremberg. What do you think of the idea, first of all, of an international court of some kind, and secondly, of a military tribunal?
I would think that an international court would be the first choice if there were one competent to deal with it. That is, of course, very debatable. And I would think that the next choice would have been a federal court in the United States, preferably in New York. And the third choice would have been Guantanamo. But that name has become associated with such atrocities that it is in disrepute, and that would certainly have been the last choice. But the important fact is not in which court he is tried, but the fact that he is tried. And unfortunately, that opportunity has now been lost. And I think we have lost a great deal.
Let me just ask David Rifkin, I mean, the fact is, politically, it's more convenient all round if people, unfortunately, die in the business of their arrest, isn't it? Now, Mr. Ferenc, you seem to be indicating some support for the idea of these guys being tried in a federal court. Wouldn't it be actually impossible to get a jury, for example, who hadn't heard of someone like Osama bin Laden?
I think that it's a mistake to focus all the attention on the question of venue. It doesn't really matter where the venue is, providing there is a fair trial open to the public. The important thing, if you have such a trial, is to deter the repetition of such criminal acts by others. And the way you do that is you let the accused state his case, have it subjected to critical examination by the prosecution and by the public who hear the trial, and then you reach your verdict and carry it out. If you haven't done that, then you've lost the opportunity of getting some benefit out of it, other than killing a man who is obviously responsible for thousands of deaths. So I think we shouldn't focus only on the venue question.
Longer perspective than any of us. 91 years old, you're at Nuremberg. What lesson do you draw from the experience of Nuremberg for how we deal with bringing these people to justice?
I have learned that you cannot kill an ideology with a gun. Also, that vengeance begets more vengeance. And jubilation at catching one criminal, so-called criminal, doesn't further the ideals which I hope we are advocating in the world. The seizure of bin Laden, the conviction of him in any court, would be a very simple thing. I prosecuted 22 leading Nazis and convicted them of murdering over 1 million people in cold blood, and I rested my case in 2 days because I had all of their daily reports from the front. Here we have from bin Laden his television broadcast telling us exactly what he intends to do and how. Let him say that, if he were alive, on a court sworn to. He would be cross-examined by competent prosecutors like Mr. Nice and others, and the world would be able to choose which kind of world do they want. Do they want one where you believe...
Can I pose one question to Mr. Ferenc? Just one question.
I wouldn't care, Mr. Rifkin, what tribunal they were tried in if he got a fair trial and it was open to the public. And I think the American courts are quite competent of giving a fair trial. Military commissions, I had experience with the military commissions in the Dachau concentration camp right after the war, where the average time for a defendant was a couple of minutes. And I'm a little skeptical about military commissions, also by the failure of them to have general support among the public. There's no reason to do that. Well, and by giving him a trial in an area where most of the crimes have been committed, the public is brought into the act. But what I'm trying to say is that this is part of a historical process. We are trying to stop people using the argument that they have a preemptive right to go out and kill people who disagree with them. That premise should be challenged in a court of law. It should be examined, and we should know under what circumstances we can go to war. That is already governed by the United Nations Charter. We can only use armed force in self-defense or if approved by the Security Council of the United Nations. The action of terrorists is similar to a war. Whether you call it a war or not is not to mean decisive, but it's what you do and what the penalties are and what lessons we learn from that. And spending all your time arguing about the venue of a man who's already dead, I think is largely a waste of time. Let us re-examine the question of what have we learned.
Well, that's us
arguing.
arguing.